My name is Rebecca Conroy and I'm a beekeeper, and this is Building My Veggie Garden.
Welcome to part 2 of a special episode about bees and pollination. Our special guest, Rebecca Conroy, started to show us what a hive looks like. Before we go back to our conversation with her, let's check out some fun facts about bees. An average beehive can hold around 50,000 bees. Bees have 5 eyes, 2 regular eyes, and 3 tiny eyes on their forehead. Bees use their feet to find food and avoid flowers that have been visited already. Worker honeybees have 2 stomachs. One stomach's for eating, and the other special stomach is for storing nectar collected from flowers or water so that they can carry it back to their hive. A bee must collect nectar from about 2 million flowers to make 1 pound of honey. It requires 556 worker bees to gather a pound of honey. Bees fly more than once around the world to gather a pound of honey. The average worker bee lives for just about 5 to 6 weeks. During this time, she'll produce around 1/12 of a teaspoon of honey. The queen bee lives for about 2 to 3 years. She's the busiest in the summer months, when the hive needs to be at the maximum strength and lays up to 2,500 eggs a day. The honeybee is the only insect that produces food eaten by humans. And if you're wondering what these bees are doing, they're flapping their wings to cool down the hive. Bees maintain a temperature of 92 to 93 degrees Fahrenheit in their central brood nest regardless of the weather outside. So when it's hot, bees turn on their AC. They flap their wings.
Bees are what we call a superorganism. They can't exist by themselves. They are actually like one biological unit, the whole group. If you took a bee by itself, even a queen bee, she would die pretty fast. So they need to all be together. There's 3 kinds of bees in a beehive. There's the queen. Generally there's only one queen, though occasionally there'll be a mother and a daughter that are still in the same hive. There are worker bees, which are all girls, and then there's the drone bees, which are the boys. So the difference between a girl bee and a boy bee is that when a queen lays an unfertilized egg, it will become a boy. So it has no father. It's all her genetics. When a queen lays a fertilized egg, it can grow either into a worker bee, which are 95% of the bees in her are worker bees, or it can be raised into a queen bee. The only difference is what it gets fed as a larva. So a queen bee, when they are making a queen bee, they feed it royal jelly the whole time it's a larva. And then it goes into the cocoon stage and then it hatches out. Whereas a worker bee and a drone bee only gets royal jelly for 3 days. After that, they get the bee bread, the pollen. What we have here, this, if you notice, looks different than the cap on the other stuff. That was honey. These are babies. So that's a breathable compound that they put. It's not quite wax because air can get in and out because there's babies in it. And you can see that those are capped ones, but also like there's little larvae in the bottom, very tiny larvae down in the bottom, and you can see they're kind of floating in sort of a pearly white, sort of liquidy stuff. That's royal jelly. That's what they feed the baby bees for the first 3 days. And royal jelly is the only thing that a queen larva will get fed. Remember how the other capped babies looked? See how these are more puffed up and rounded? That is because those are drone babies, which we call brood. So this whole frame is going to be hatching out drones. So there's a boy bee right there. Right there. See how he's bigger? He's bigger, he's got bigger eyes, and he's got a flat back bottom, like tip. The other bees have sort of a pointy tip. They have stingers. He doesn't have a stinger. He can't sting. He's got big eyes because he needs to see the queen, not his queen, but another queen when he goes out to mate. So they actually do that outside the hive flying around. The queen can mate with many, and she generally doesn't do it very often. Like really, they used to think that she only left the hive right after she was hatched. And she went out and she mated with many drones and then came back and she stores the semen. And then she can use it when needed. So either she lays a fertilized egg or an unfertilized egg. Mostly she lays fertilized because this probably has most of the drones in the whole hive. There's only about 5% drones in a hive because their only mission is actually to mate with other queens from other hives. So here is the pollen. So all those different cells are full of pollen. And you can see there's kind of a variety of color because each kind of plant gives off a different color of pollen. And that is what they ferment with a little bit of honey and some bee magic and turn it into a very digestible form of protein that they feed the babies. Any insect pollinated plant bees will go to. So they love when the broccoli blooms after, if you haven't picked it in time. They love the blooming basil as far as in your garden. So any kind of plant that you see a bug going to, bees will like that one. If you want to pick out, just flowers for your yard, go to the nursery and just look around and see which ones the bees are going to. I think the most important thing that we as human beings and individually and collectively can do for bees and other pollinators is to stop using insecticides and herbicides because those are and fungicides, all those pesticides. Those are the biggest things impacting bees. I would work on the health of the soil versus just trying to kill that bug because healthy, robust plants don't fall victim to these things. A bug might come and eat a little bit, but the whole plant can withstand that. That's just the way of nature. That's all our forests work. Everything in nature doesn't, a bug comes along and decimates it. Well, maybe the cicadas, but they come back from that. And then for herbicides, there's other ways to kill plants other than, spraying an herbicide on it. You can use vinegar and salt, or you can just pull it out, the old-fashioned weeding. Bees make many things. The one everybody, knows about is honey. So of course they make that. This is just from the nectar of flowers, and they take it and they turn it into this thick, sweet stuff we call honey. This is darker honeycomb because it has a lot of propolis in it, which is something I mentioned before, which is another thing the bees make. So when you get honey out of the hive, though, it comes straight from the honeycomb, and we extract it and put it into, make it liquid and then bottle it. Propolis is something the bees make from tree sap, like I mentioned. You can put it on a cut or a scrape. You can put like 1 drop on a tooth that's bothering you. It tastes awful. It's better to dilute it. But if your tooth is hurting, it's worth it. And you can put maybe 1 drop in your ear if your ears are bothering you. And the other thing we make with the propolis is propolis salve, which is just propolis dissolved in coconut oil. So this is also good for skin problems, itchy skin, any kind of scrape that you might need some antibacterial, anti-inflammatory stuff on. Another thing the bees make is pollen. This is how we collect the pollen. It comes in these little balls because the bees actually carry it home on their back legs. 1 ball on each leg, they fly it home. Another thing the bees make is beeswax. So beeswax candles are amazing, like everything else the bees make. It smells like honey, so it's just got this natural light scent. And when they burn, they actually release negative ions into the air, which clean the air. And the bees make the beeswax actually from their body. So everything else they collect from nature, but the beeswax, they actually eat honey and then make the wax comes out of their body between their layers of their exoskeleton in little tiny flakes. A recipe I really like is making a candy. So it's got a 1/2 cup of coconut oil, 1/4 cup of cocoa powder, 1/4 cup of honey, and a scoop of peanut butter or other nut butter. You just mix that all together You take like an ice cube tray or a silicone tray and you pour it into the little spots and you put that in the freezer. In 20 minutes it hardens up because the coconut oil just hardens, and you can pop those out, keep them in the freezer, and just eat them as you want. A lot of people have pollen allergies, and that is simply their body overreacting to the pollen in the air. So one way that some people find beneficial is by eating honey, which has local honey, has the pollen that's around you is in the honey, or you can just actually eat the pollen itself. So these are two ways that as your body eats this pollen, it begins to see it as a food and not something to react badly to. The best honey for you, the best pollen for you is going to be honey and pollen out of your own backyard.
Thank you, Rebecca, for sharing with us. We owe a lot to bees. Let's do everything we can to make our garden bee-friendly. Thank you for tuning in. For more information about Rebecca, please visit her social media and website. If you're in the St. Pete area, you may find her at the St. Pete Saturday Morning Market. Please don't forget to like and subscribe to our channels. Thank you again for watching, and remember, be veggie strong. See you next time.